I recall staying up until roughly 4:30ish in the morning, which means I went to bed earlier than I did the night before that. And I recall waking up sometime around around 8:15 in the morning, which I felt was pretty early. Considering how late I went to bed. I got dinner at the Harrison Dining Hall at around 7:30 p.m. But I didn't feel like eating what I had gotten right away, so I put what I got into my mini fridge. And I believe I also got 2 Mountain Dew Rise energy drinks. And I possibly may have done the same when I got lunch at the Harrison Dining Hall. Today was I had my intermediate Spanish 2 class after my African politics class for today, in which we talked about the social issue of poverty. And during that lecture, the professor talked about how he feels that the primary reason why African nations typically struggle with poverty is because of poor policy decisions by their governments. Near the end of class, I asked a question regarding if geography played a factor in the relative poverty within African nations. Which was a throwback to, I believe, last semester when I had my politics of geography class. If I recall, he said that he agreed that geography does play a factor, but I believe that's more important with what you do with what you have. Which makes sense. I believe at some point he gave the example of Japan, which manages to be a wealthy nation despite not having many natural resources and being an island. But I believe if a nation is an island, then fishing is probably going to be a significant part of their history and culture, I would imagine. Jasmine sticky rice is pretty good. For today's intermediate Spanish class, we went over and did exercises regarding the past subjunctive. The difference between the present subjunctive and the past subjunctive is hard to quantify at this very moment, but we did at some point briefly go over what you typically see within the subjunctive mood in of itself. I believe there's two moods within Spanish. The indicative, which is used to indicate certain things, and the subjunctive, which is used to express either possibilities, uncertainties, or things that aren't there. The Szechuan chicken is nice and chewy. Generally speaking, the past subjunctive is going to include most of the infinitive with certain endings that remain consistent across all verb endings. It was revealed that our class on Thursday is going to be over Zoom, so I believe I called Dad immediately after my Spanish class and told him that he could pick me up on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. For a stay over at his place. Throughout the rest of the week and the weekend. There are some significant gaps in space within my city in Elvenar. But that could potentially be resolved. For the first time, I'm having my night farms produce night essence. I'm making progress towards that quest. Excuse me. For our visual art experience class, for starters, at the end of it, I got back my final grade for the ceramic shoe. And then not long after that, I brought home the ceramic shoe. Not long after class ended, at which point I was working on transferring this design, which was a revision from... This is something I had brought with me to class, using the visual art experience notebook to hold the papers related to art, including the sketches both on the way to art class and on the way back. I believe I headed off for art class around 1:30 in the afternoon. These are sketches I worked on while waiting for the teacher early on. This is the handout she gave at the beginning of class. I believe she drew on this and I made an edit to it. I'm thinking of using for this, which I've pretty much just started transferring to which, oddly enough, I learned the hard way that despite a 6 hard pencil being the hardest pencil you can get and supposed to be making very light marks, you still have to mark with it very lightly if you don't want it to show up on the finished product. I began the tracing on gessoed and taped up paper. I had to ask about it 3 times how long it takes to gesso paper, but when I had shown my interest or curiosity enough, she said that for the whole class, the whole visual art experience class, it took her 2 weeks working on it sporadically, while also being in charge of at least one ceramics class. I believe I've gotten as far as I can on the Spire of Eternity. The enemy squad size is significantly more than my own. And there's no unit type that can outright be dominant in all of the enemy forces, though theoretically I could use this one, but I believe the Freynet Frog can barely do any damage against a mage unit. Hey, yeah. Theoretically, the Valorian Guard could also be pretty good. For this. And can still do decent damage. Against the Abbot. Yeah, but still, it isn't easy. I haven't yet built the mercenary camp within Elvenar. Thankfully, it didn't rain while I was walking from the tower to Eagle Hall to bring my ceramic shoe to my dorm room. I fear something like that could happen, considering how, at that point in time, the sky was completely overcast and cloudy. And not too long after I got back to my dorm room, I had heard that the jury in, I believe, Derek Chauvin's trial for murder and manslaughter against George Floyd, I heard the verdict was going to be read soon. Thankfully, Drake Chauvin was found guilty of all counts, considering how he used unnecessary force against George Floyd, who was an unarmed African American. And I believe there were multiple officers at the time. Aside from Drake Chauvin, in my mind, I knew that a complete acquittal was unlikely, but there was a possibility that the jury would acquit him of murder but find him guilty of manslaughter. And that would have left activists who feel that the case of what happened to George Floyd is yet another example of disproportionate police brutality against minorities in our country, including myself. By that I mean I agree with the activists. Yeah, I was concerned that the jury would either find Drake guilty of just manslaughter, or even do an outright acquittal, and that would lead to that would set the nation on fire. There were considerable concerns of fears, considering I believe it's Minneapolis and Washington, D.C. had National Guard troops deployed in force. And that shopkeepers boarded up windows in anticipation of a possible acquittal, since it theoretically was possible. While waiting for the verdict reading, I found a news article regarding the Torched Earth IPA by, I believe the name of the company is Fat Tire Brewery. Though I'm not entirely sure. The article initially told me that the brewery used less than ideal ingredients to brew the beer. In particular, they used smoke-tinged or tainted water. So I believe either water that was made to taste like smoke, water that was exposed to smoke, or something like that. Dandelions and drought-resistant grains like buckwheat. It's intended to show what the potential effects of climate change could be if we don't take aggressive action to reduce its impact. As incredible as it is, a lot of the major companies these days still don't have a plan of action regarding climate change. Just set them on a road to at least make some significant gains by 2030. The website said some 70%. Yeah, I went on their website. I'm 21 years old now, technically over 21, because I believe now it's 21 in a few months. And they talked about how they're a medium-sized company, and thus can only have a medium-sized impact, but still, it's good to hear that they're doing a lot for climate change. Though we should probably be doing a whole lot more. Not only so we can all continue enjoying the standard of life we've all risen to over the past century and a half, I would say, even though obviously most of us haven't been alive for most of it. I've only been around since 1999. Again, I'm 21 years old. Excuse me. But also, I believe the changes that are going to come about through combating climate change are going to be the things of the future. There's also concerns regarding artificial intelligence. I'm just at times wonder how many kinds of work will become obsolete for humans to do as artificial intelligence continues to get better and better. I mean, we all have to find some kind of purpose in life. And I'm just thinking that that's what makes creative and critical thinking so important in terms of moving forward into the future. At some point, I fell asleep after getting dinner and then waking up pretty late, but it's still been a pretty good day. I'm happy to hear that a lot of the YouTube videos I watched a year or two ago, I can still find today. I can still find GoAnimate videos that were uploaded 8, 10, or even 12 years ago. It's all been pretty good.